Good evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website and podcast. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so that you can follow along. In accordance with our group conscience, on October 16th, we will also be posting our podcast on YouTube. We feel that this is an effective way to carry our message to those seeking recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. Tonight's recap will start on page 54 at the bottom where it says, "We found two," and it will end on page 55 with, "Belief is sure to come to you." And our study will start on page 55 in this book you will read, and it will end on page 57 at the end of the chapter. And before I open it up for announcements, I have one. For those of you who have been active in our women's meeting, Sassy Sisters, or who know about it, we are celebrating our 3rd year anniversary. So the meeting tomorrow will start at 6:30, but we will be opening at 5:30 for a potluck so we can share with each other, have fun, fellowship. But it's a weird potluck. You bring dinner, you can only eat your own food. You can't share with somebody else. It wasn't that funny, Jim.
I love it. That was fun. Hi, family. My name is Jamie. Very grateful, recovered alcoholic, and still working on my GSR report for the group. Trish is going to post or say what our next group conscience date is. Welcome to everyone who's joining us for the first time. We're glad to have you here. Welcome everybody who's coming back. For home group members, the GSR report will come out in an email to you. If you like what we have to offer in this group, we certainly hope you will come back and participate. It's the way we grow the group. Invite a frenemy if you like. And, if you like what we have and you'd like to become a home group member, all you have to do is let me or Trish know, and all we need is an email address, phone number, and sobriety date, because we celebrate birthdays here as well, when we are prepared for them. Shayna, I'm going to co-host you as well, okay? I'm going to throw you some power. And on that note, enough with the announcements. Oh, no, one last thing. 4th of July, pickle party here at my house. We will be having our 4th annual pickle family reunion here, and we have a blast. So whatever part of the country you live in, you're welcome to come join us for the 4th of July. We spend several days, do a lot of cooking. Tents will be involved because the house only has so much lodging. So feel free to come join us. We would love to have you. Moving on. Good evening, family. My name is Jamie. I am a very grateful recovered alcoholic. And welcome to the Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of monk meditation. I'm changing that because we use the monks, and followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of any background noises like the 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock news when you are unmuted, and sharing is to not distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. And just a friendly reminder that absence of profanity offends no one. Keep yourself muted during someone else's share, please, and we will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the foreword to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God and let the craziness of the day drift away. Ask God to help you focus on the study.
And on that note, let's invite those cute little monks in to do what the monks do so well. Enjoy your time with God, folks. And please join us in our family's fog light prayer. It's on your screen in front of you. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen. And Nicole, just so you know, it looks like your car's laying on its side taking a nap. You're sideways. Just so you know.
Am I? Okay, thank you. How do I fix it?
Don't know.
And let's have our secretary's report. Come on in, Alyssa.
Thank you, Trish. Hi, my name's Alyssa. I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked Miss Linda to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Miss Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic, recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism, recovered but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. We were cured, we would be able to drink. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime, but we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in the body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you, Miss Linda. Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our big book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a big book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the forward to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapse, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we get a show of hands of people joining us for the first time?
We got a couple out there. Rain is joining us, and Mary.
Welcome.
Welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Yes. And then the recovered alcoholics. These are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week?
Let's see any. Mary? Was that a wave or a hand?
You're muted, Mary.
Unmute.
I don't know if it's a milestone. I hit 60 days yesterday.
It's a milestone.
Oh, that is 2 months. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Trisha's working on it. There you go. There's a 60-day chip for you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. Glad to-
Congratulations, Miss Mary.
Thank you so much.
If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time questionable. Please remember to practice our seventh tradition by donating to the group address Venmo or PayPal posted in the chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. Thank you and see you next week.
From Chapter 2, there is a solution. Oh, and thank you, ladies, for being of service. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 11. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 12. Please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous. Come on in, Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole, your traditionist. Tradition 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation in all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. The long form. And finally, we of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the principle of anonymity has an immense spiritual significance. It reminds us that we are to place principles before personalities, that we are to practice a genuine humility. This is to end that our great blessings may never spoil us, that we shall forever live in thankful contemplation of him who presides over us. In this tradition simply means that the spiritual foundation becomes more important than the individual groups. It also reminds us that each member is just as important as any other member. We must never compromise the anonymity of members to the outside world, never use it for selfish gains. We are simply supposed to carry a message to the alcoholic who still suffers. how it's worked in our lives, and how we have recovered. When we take our personalities out of the picture, it opens the door for spiritual principles, which we all live by: unconditional love, hope, and unity. We learn to live by humility. As we learn to live by the program, we then change from within, so therefore others notice us changing, and we don't have to shout it from the rooftops that we're in AA. If I choose to tell somebody I'm in AA, that is my business, but I cannot tell anybody else, that they're in AA, because that's blows the anonymity. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Good job, and thank you for serving for the last 3 weeks. And folks, next week we will have a new traditionalist coming in to do traditions 1, 2, and 3. So, time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as it is outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Here's one of those things that we often hear said in meetings. You're in the right place. So I'd like to welcome in Rain, joining us for the first time, and she's going to tell us what it says on pages 20 and 21. You're muted, Rain.
Hi, Rain Alcoholic. Nice to be here. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years later, before his time. I'm sorry. If a sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man can also stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome and may even need medical attention.
Thank you so much for being a service, Rain.
As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
Means I gotta flip the page here. In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book study guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight, we're going to start our recap on page 54, which will be read tonight by Jim, followed by our study portion on page 55, which will be read in a moment by Kenny.
After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back where tonight's study portion begins with Kenny. The answers will be one sentence, unless otherwise specified. And multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically in English, what that means is we're going to read the material once through and then discuss the information dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we have completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, observations based on what we just read. And if you've had a spiritual experience with any of this information, please feel free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer. I might hold up the coolest dog in the world and wave him around in the screen so that you know that your time's up.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, For example, with a sponsor. Please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings to us to the words of one of our co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
And before we get started, we're going to take a brief look at how we arrived at this point. Because we didn't just randomly open the page tonight and say, let's read page 54 and 55 and through 57. This meeting started in January 2020, pre-COVID, in Jamie's living room. And then with COVID, like a lot of the rest of the world, shut down. And then it reopened, first as a hybrid meeting, and then changed into a Zoom-only meeting. And we study the book from the title page all the way to page 164 in the format we're going to use tonight, the question and answers. And we do about a page and a half or 2 pages each week. And once we get to page 164, we also read Dr. Bob's Nightmare. We spent 2 weeks on the traditions. And then, as a part of the study, we read the Spiritual Experience, Appendix 2, 3 times. But then we finish up our 94-week study with a week just on the spiritual experience, because that is such a big, important part of what we do here. And then on week 95, we go all the way back to the beginning. So we're in year 4 of our meetings, but in season 3, or the 3rd time going through the book together.
Thank you, Trish. And before we start the recap, we could use 5 or 6 people to raise their hands if they would like to be question answers. And that's a real simple progress. It's just line by line out of the book as we study the book. Thank you, ladies. All right, look at that. We got 4. Couple of more, we will be good to go. And Jim, go ahead and come on in and do our recap, my friend. I think you're doing our recap, right? Yeah.
Hello, brothers and sisters. Tonight's recap. Imagine life without faith. With nothing left but pure reason, it wouldn't be life. But we believed in life, of course we did. We could not prove life in the sense that you can prove a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points, yet there it was. Could we still say the whole thing was nothing but a mass of electrons created out of nothing, meaning nothing, whirling on to a destiny of nothingness? Of course we couldn't. The electrons themselves seem more intelligent than that. At least so the chemists said. Hence we saw that reason isn't everything. Neither is reason, as most of us use it, entirely dependable, though it emanate from our best minds. What about people who proved that man could never fly? Yet we had been seeing another kind of flight, a spiritual liberation from this world, people who rose above their problems. They said God made these things possible, and we only smiled. We had seen spiritual release, but we liked to tell ourselves it wasn't true. Actually, we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. We found the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. And so it was so with us. We can only clear the ground a bit. If our testimony helps sweep away any prejudice, enables you to think honestly, encourages you to search diligently within yourself, then, if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. With this attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you.
Thank you, Jim. And Kenny, come on in with our study for tonight.
Good evening, everyone. In this book, you will read the interesting that some of it should be told now. His change of heart was dramatic, convincing, and moving. Our friend was a minister's son. He attended church school where he became rebellious at what he thought was an overdose of religious education. For years thereafter, he was dogged by trouble, frustration, business failure, insanity, fatal illness, suicide. These calamities in his immediate family embittered him and depressed him. Post-war disillusionment, ever more serious alcoholism, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to the point of self-destruction. One night when confined in the hospital, he was approached by the alcoholic who had known a spiritual experience. Our friend George rose as bitterly cried out, "If there is a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me." But later, alone in his room, he asked himself a question: is it possible that all these religious people I have known are wrong? While pondering the answer, he felt as though he lived in hell. Then, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came to him, and it crowded out all else. Who are you to say there is no God? This man recounted that he tumbled out of bed to his knees. In a few seconds, he was overwhelmed by the conviction of the presence of God. It poured out and through him with the certainty and majesty of a great tide at flood. The barriers he had built through the years were swept away. He stood in the presence of the infinite power of love. He had stepped from the bridge to shore. For the first time, he lived in a conscious companionship with his Creator. Thus, our friend Cornerstone fixed in place. No later vicissitude has shaken it. The alcoholic problem was taken away. That very night, years ago, it disappeared, save for a few moments of brief temptation, though the thought of the drink never returned. And at such time, a great revulsion had risen up in him. Seemingly he could not drink even if he would. God had restored him to sanity. What is it but a miracle of healing? Yet its elements are simple. Circumstances made him willing to believe. He humbly offered himself to his Maker, then he knew. Even so has God restored us all to our right minds. To this man, the revelation was sudden. Some of us grows into it more slowly, but it comes to all who honestly sought him. But he comes to all who have honestly sought him. When we draw near to him, he discloses himself to us. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Kenny, and thank you, Jim, both for reading. For our answer readers, please go ahead and unmute, and when it's your turn, speak clearly into your microphones. And we will ask the questions from our script by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff. And the answers to those questions will be sentence by sentence coming directly out of this week's study that Kenny just read, beginning with the first sentence he read and ending with the last sentence. So our batting order tonight is going to be Kat, Linda, Alyssa, William, and Lisa. So, Kat, our first question comes to you. Is there a story of an atheist in this book?
No.
And you're still muted.
Right. Kat, I'm an alcoholic. In this book, you will read the experience of a man who thought he was an atheist.
Thank you. And Linda, why is it being mentioned at this point?
I'm sorry, where is that? What page is that on?
Page 55. Very bottom paragraph, and you'll have the second sentence. His story is so interesting.
His story is so interesting that some of it should be told now.
Thank you. And Alyssa, could it be that he had a spiritual experience as the result of trying this program?
His change of heart was dramatic, convincing, and moving.
Thank you. And William, what kind of childhood did this man have?
Our friend was a minister's son.
Thank you. Lisa, how had he come to feel about religious matters?
He attended church school, where he became rebellious at what he thought an overdose of religious education.
Thank you. And Kat, back to you. Was his life one of happiness and peace of mind?
For years thereafter, he was dogged by trouble and frustration.
Thank you. Linda, a two-part question. What things did he experience and how did they affect him?
Business failure, insanity, fatal illness, suicide. These calamities in his immediate family embittered and depressed him.
Thank you. And Alyssa, you get a two-part question also. But that was not all. What else? And where did he wind up?
Post-war disillusionment, ever more serious alcoholism, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to the point of self-destruction.
Thank you. And William, who came to visit him?
One night, when confined in the hospital, he was approached by an alcoholic who had known a spiritual experience.
And how did that visit affect him, Lisa?
Our friend's gorge rose as he bitterly cried out, "If there is a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me."
Thank you. And Kat, but later, what did he ask?
But later, alone in his room, he asked himself this question: is it possible that all the religious people I have known are wrong?
Thank you. Linda, how did he feel when he began to think maybe he had been wrong? 3 sentences, please.
While pondering the answer, he felt as though he lived in hell. Then, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came. It crowded out all else.
Thank you. And Alyssa, what thought overwhelmed him?
Who are you to say there is no God?
Powerful. William, what did he do?
This man recounted the trouble this man recounted that he tumbled out of bed to his knees.
Thank you. And Lisa, what happened almost immediately?
In a few seconds, he was overwhelmed by a conviction of the presence of God.
And Kat, how did it feel to him?
It poured over and through him with the certainty and majesty of a great tide at flood.
Thank you. And Linda, what happened to his sense of reason?
The barriers he had built through the years were swept away.
Thank you. Where did he find himself, Alyssa?
He stood in the presence of infinite power and love.
Thank you. And William, had he stepped into the world of the Spirit?
He stood in the presence of infinite power and love. He had stepped from bridge to shore.
Thank you. And Lisa, of what was he now conscious?
For the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with his Creator.
Thank you. And Kat, was he now on solid ground?
Thus was our friend's cornerstone fixed in place.
Thank you. Linda, had any drastic changes in his life altered his faith?
No later, the vicissitude has shaken it.
Thank you. Alyssa, what happened to his drinking problem?
His alcoholic problem was taken away.
Did his higher power solve his problem, William?
That very night, years ago, it disappeared.
Thank you. And Lisa, a two-part question. To what extent did the thought of drinking return to him, and how did he react to those brief moments?
Save for a few brief moments of temptation, the thought of drink has never returned. And at such times, a great revulsion has risen up in him.
Thank you. And Kat, had he now joined the first 100 as being a recovered alcoholic?
Seemingly, he could not drink even if he would.
Thank you. Linda, had the hope of step 2 become a reality in his life?
God had restored his sanity.
Thank you. And Alyssa, what do we call this type of event?
What is this but a miracle of healing?
Thank you. And are its elements complex, William?
Yet its elements are simple. Circumstance made him willing. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
And Lisa, what made it possible for him to come to believe?
Circumstances made him willing to believe.
Thank you. And Kat, a two-part question. What did he do? And then he what?
He humbly offered himself to his Maker. Then he knew.
Thank you. And Linda, for how many had God repeated this miracle?
Even so has God restored us all to our right minds.
Thank you. And Alyssa, did this man have a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience?
To this man, the revelation was sudden.
Thank you.
Comment, this was Fitzmayo's spiritual experience.
And William, do we all have this sudden revelation?
Some of us grow into it more slowly.
Another comment, a spiritual awakening may occur suddenly or slowly over time.
And Lisa, what is the promise to all those who will become students and practitioners of this basic textbook?
But he has come to all who have honestly sought him.
Comment, this is a promise come true for all of us who seek.
Thank you. And Kat, you got the first question and the last question. If we try to apply these steps to our lives, what will happen?
When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us.
And the final comment, is this another promise of step 2?
Thank you, everyone. And we will now open the floor for sharing. If you have experience with the portion in the book that we just read, please feel free to share. And a friendly reminder as we share, absence of profanity offends no one. We are going to open for comment, questions, and observations based on what we just read. And if you have spiritual experience with this information, you are also free to share. So who's going to jump in first?
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. And I wanted to share my own experience and my own identification with this. Everyone gets sober in their own way. That's why they say it's a personal recovery. But this describes everything that he went through. And he didn't have a very good experience with God and religion as a child, and I could identify with that because we were Baptists, and my father was a Baptist, my grandmother was a Baptist, and my other grandmother was a Presbyterian, so we would be dragged from one congregation to another, and sometimes it was conflicting ideas. My mother got tired, she just didn't go to church at all. So it would be a thing where, something's going on, let's say a prayer. That's the kind of God that I had in my life. I didn't really, have a conscious contact or a good relation with God. Not unless I wanted something. You know, that's the kind of God that I had. It was about what I wanted. And this man did have a spiritual experience. He did. You know, it says it here. It talks about it, you know, and all the barriers, it says the barriers he had built through the years were swept away. And he stood in the presence of the infinite power and love. And this, when he stood in that infinite power and love from God, I'm sure that what he was feeling was totally different from when he was a child. It was a totally different God. It was a totally different God. And when we go through this spiritual experience and when these barriers are moved, then our mind opens up. And it says that we get to a different spiritual level. We really do. Then we start to understand God in the way that we should be understanding God. You know, not what someone else tells us. You know, and this is why people say that AA is a religious program, because there's a lot of talk about God, there's talk about spiritual experience, and it says it in the second step, you know, that came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. You know, no matter how much I drank, you know, I was always defeated. You know, there was no willpower. You know, I didn't have the power of choice. And it had to be a spiritual experience. It had to be. I had to bring this problem. I had to bring this malady. I had to bring this pain and this suffering to my God. And I'm so glad I did get the gift of desperation. And, you know, one person told me, well, God has to break our heart to get in. Because we're very tough-skinned alcoholics. We're rebellious. We're belligerent. We think we know everything. And we have a barrier. We have a brick wall up. Our wall is bigger than the Great Wall of China. We don't want to hear anything about God, blah, blah, this. And you know, it's, the God said it. You know, God hasn't done anything for me. You know, God does something for me every day. He wakes me up, gives me the breath of life. You know, but as an alcoholic with all that alcohol in me, of course, I was thinking something else. But I like the part about the spiritual experience. It takes us to a different level. It takes us to a different level. And if you've ever had, you're going to have more than one spiritual experience with God. You are. You're going to have more, you know, if you stay close to Him, you know. And I always say this, that, you know, God bring me to AA, and then AA bring me back to God. And that's where that 11th step comes in. But, you know, it tells you right from the gate, right off the cuff, second step, God will, you know, a power greater than yourself will restore you to sanity. You call God Yahweh, Jehovah, God, you know, spirit in the sky, whatever you name God, God is God. And God can work miracles. I can't get myself sober. There's no way. It had to be a power of myself. It had to be. Or else I would have died. My God dragged me to the rooms. You know, I'm here by God's grace and God's mercy. This is a merciful God. Because if I would have got what I deserved, I wouldn't be here now. You know, so I have a merciful God. And when I got that spiritual experience, that's when I realized how merciful my God is. How powerful my God is. You know, today I have the power of choice. And my choice is not to drink. I had no power of choice. It was horrible. You know, it was a nightmare. You know, thank God today I'm not living that nightmare. And, you know, the whole thing about recovered and recovering. You know, I am recovered from a hopeless state of mind. And that's it. I'm not recovered from alcoholism. Never. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda.
Hi, William.
Hello, family. I just want to say hello to everybody. I'm glad to be here. My name is William Alcoholic, and definitely identify with the reading and stuff. And I start up here when he was talking about his father was a ministry. Everybody in my family was doing something in the church. My sister, the secretary, Craig, my brother, the pastor, another sister, pastor of the church, and all this stuff was going on, and I was being educated, and the kind of stuff I heard, you know, it just didn't set right with me and stuff. And I definitely agree with the part here where he said he attended school where he became I didn't know I was being rebellious at the time when this was happening. I just realized this whenever we started reading this book and stuff. And for years thereafter, he was dogged by troubles and frustration and business failure, insanity, and fatal illness and suicide. These calamities in his immediate family embittered and depressed him. Put war, disillusion, ever more serious alcohol, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to a point of self-destruction. And that's why I was in it. And I tell you, and if I wasn't a coward, I wouldn't be here today. I definitely suicidal thought, you know, and my relationship with God is totally different than it is today. Totally different than what it is today. Because I will tell God what I wanted God to do for me. You know? And I said it so many times that I became afraid to say it, but I said it, you know, because I knew when I said it, I was going to get struck by a bowl of lightning, you know. And when I was drinking and like that, you know, I'd be straddled of a fence, you know. And I would say something to myself like this: I'm going to hell anyway. I might as well go out with a blaze of fire on my butt, you know. And I'll take that drink and fall over there into the insanity of alcoholism, you know. It feel like so comfortable, but after I feel emotional, destroyed, suicidal, you know. And it wasn't because I just didn't appreciate life at that time. You know, I had all the things, but I just didn't have myself. I didn't have myself. So as I stayed here, we began to read this. I began to see my behavior and what I could do about it and change them things, you know. And so I like this part right here. Now, I was a Vietnam veteran. I did a lot of traveling over in the Far East, different places, different countries and stuff. So, and I was blind. I didn't realize none of this stuff until I started coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. And in the last paragraph down there, it say, when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. And I began to see that God was with me all the time. But he just wasn't giving me what I wanted. You know what I mean? I truly believe if he ever gave me what I wanted, I wouldn't be here today. You know. So definitely relationship is totally different today, you know. I don't ask for nothing. All my needs is covered in some of my wants. So when I get up and wake up in the morning, I start my prayer meditation, and I just say, thank you, God. I don't ask for nothing. Thank you. And somehow, that whatever goes on in my life, it always been God is here with me. You know? And I truly believe that. Also being something I need to learn, something I need, is still being teachable, still being humble. And communication is the best. That relationship with God became, my communication got so much better, you know. God is God and William is William. God knows William unconditional, because William seen how he pulled him out of those streets that he didn't have to be here today. And you know what? And when I was there, life was a pain to live. Now, if I had just took me out of here, I'd have been okay. But the pain of living, waking up every day, despair, waking up every day with all that stuff, all that in my head, and suicidal and stuff. But I thank God that I'm here today, and the communication is much better. So it's good to be here with y'all tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Mr. Pickles, come on in.
Good evening, family. My name is Jamie. I am a very grateful recovered alcoholic, and wonderful to have all of you with us here tonight. I'm going to touch on something. From the foreword to the second edition, page XX, Alcoholics Anonymous is not a religious organization. That being said, I love history. I love the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. Fitzmayo is mentioned 3 times in our big book. he comes up 3 times. The first time he comes up is in the doctor's opinion. The second time he comes up is in this chapter, the chapter to the agnostic. And then the third and final time he comes up in the book is in his own story called Our Southern Friend, in the personal stories in the back of the book. And it's well worth reading. Fitz had himself locked up in a barn, drinking himself to death, when some friends found him, and that's how he ended up in Towns Hospital. But I want to share, and I posted a link about Fitz Mayo in the chat as well. If you want to save it, by all means, go ahead, and it's a good read. It's more history of our program, and I feel it's important to read this part that I'm going to read, which is not in our book. And the reason I feel it's important is because about half of our fellowship in the beginning was either atheist or agnostic. About half of our fellowship was. And the thing that I love about the chapter to the agnostic is it gives every one of God's children on this planet a pathway to finding a power, a pathway to finding faith. And it's a pathway to me letting go of old ideas and old beliefs and opening my heart and mind to new ideas and new beliefs that will work for me, because the old ones certainly didn't serve me well. So I pulled this up, and I'm just going to read this little paragraph here. It was while Bill and Lois were visiting Fitz in Maryland in the summer of 1936 that Bill C., a guest in the Wilson home for nearly a year, committed suicide. See page 16 of the big book. And Fitz, as well as Hank Parkhurst, often joined Bill and Lois at Oxford Group house parties before AA broke away from the Oxford Group. During the writing of the big book, Fitz insisted that the book should express Christian doctrines and use biblical terms and expressions. Ruth Hawk remembered that during the debate about God during the writing of the big book, Fitz was for going all the way with God. Bill was in the middle, and Hank was for very little. Ruth, trying to reflect the reaction of the non-alcoholic, was for very little. The result of the debate was a compromise, the phrase, God as we understood him. You know, that's very relevant to us, folks. It's relevant to step 2 and to step 3, and therefore all of the steps as we go through the program. On page 45 of our book, terms like higher power, power greater than ourselves are used. But on page 45, from there on after, that power is referred to as God, with the exception of maybe a couple of places. So I think that's very relative. Now, how does Fitz relate to my story? All kinds of ways. Nope, I did not have post-war delusionment, but I did have serious alcoholism, impending medical and physical collapse that definitely brought me to the point of self-destruction. I was born and raised in the church. I was born into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons. Watch out for those guys on the bicycles and the suits, right? Because they're coming to knock on your door. And my family was very, very involved in church. My grandfather was Sunday school superintendent, and my grandmother played piano, and my mom was the church librarian. And like, I know Catholics do a lot of Mass. Well, you know, in the Mormon faith, there's something going on every day of the week. And when I became of high school age, there was this thing that we did in the morning before school, like at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was a group of young school age kids, and we were to go study. I don't even remember what they called it anymore. However, those values I was taught as a child were good values, regardless of doctrine. Every church has their doctrine. What's interesting is they take God's simple guidelines for us to live, or commandments, and they take churches, every doctrine will put their own conditions on that. Yeah, God wants you to live by this, but we in this church want you to live by this, and if you don't live by this, then you're not being a good Catholic, Mormon, Baptist, or whatever it may be. So man has put conditions on what our relationship is supposed to be with God. And this chapter is the beginning of leading me to a relationship with God, not religion. And I find that very powerful. So, when I was 13, 14 years old and I started drinking on a daily basis and turning on and tuning out, I fell away from all of that. And as we know, we make good choices and bad choices in life. Most of those choices were bad choices that led me down a road of self-destruction, self-pity, harming others in oh so many ways. And I tried to call myself an atheist a few times. That really didn't work. But I was very confused and very angry at God when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. Agnostic in the Greek is simply this. Ag means without, Gnostic means knowledge. So I was without knowledge. The Greeks had written knowledge from the things, writings and so on and so forth, but they didn't have experiential knowledge. Our program is designed to not give us educational knowledge, though it's very educational. This chapter, our book, The Process of Taking the Steps, is designed to give us experiential knowledge of a relationship with God. And what has happened in my time in sobriety is that in my journey, what has happened, I'm 33 years sober and I've been around Alcoholics Anonymous for 50 years. And I don't understand God one bit more today than I did on the day that I got sober. But here's what's happened. The God that I don't understand has become the God of my experience, that has brought me through more pain, more grief, more shame, more guilt, more self-destruction, even sober at 24 years, trying to destroy myself because I wasn't in fit spiritual condition. We can be around a long time and not take a drink. And that's exactly what it is. And even though I read the book and so on and so forth, I had not yet come to the place where I try to live everything that's in the book. And today I try to live everything that's in the book. So this chapter, the chapter to the agnostic, again is a pathway. And whatever stages I have been at in my life, atheist, agnostic, true believer, and today I am a true believer, still offers me something every time that I go to it. I'm going to close with this. There are 3 promises right here at the very end. The first one is, Even so, God has restored us all to our right minds. That's a promise. And then to this man, the revelation was sudden, spiritual experience. Some of us grow into it more slowly, spiritual awakening. And here comes another promise. But he has come to all who have honestly sought him. That word honestly means something. It means giving everything without any reservation whatsoever. Today I trust God completely. And I love this third promise. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. Our book tells us if we have come from faith and we get sober, by all means return to faith, if we choose to do so. And on page 87 of our book, it also says about other reading materials, and many ideas on books can be obtained from your priest, minister, or rabbi. Be quick to see where religious people are right. That's a big deal in my life today, because anyone who is living life on spiritual terms in a relationship with God probably has something that I want, because I need to ask myself a question every day, today as well. If today is my day and the good Lord is going to take me home, have I done the best that I can to live today so that I'm ready? The Bible, just talking about other spiritual reading, is not about religion. It's not even about man looking for God. It's about God looking for man. Thank you.
Who's next? I get to call on names now.
Yeah, because you know I'm always a crowd killer, Trish.
Oh, you're not. Hi, Rick.
You saw me on mute.
Yep.
Good eye. Rick Alcoholic. You know, today, I don't get to do, there's a group called the 311 group. That was started by Joe the Rev here in Delaware. And I joked with him, I said, hey, New York has stolen your meeting. And it's a very good meeting. And but today, every share was about God, how God was at work in each and every one of the ones who shared. And I didn't share. I was going to, but it's something, there are times when I know I just need to listen. And because I'm not one that believes that God chooses those who will get better. And it's right here. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. When I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I came in basically clenching my bottle. God also had his hand on it. He never ripped it out of my hand, neither did he ever slap it out of my hand. I was still in a mindset that I was choosing alcohol that wasn't working for me anymore before God, and God who was bringing me to a program that to a home that I always wanted to be at. And I always asked, oh, man, I wish I could go home. I never thought it would be AA, you know. But my first sponsor was, you need to just ask him, Rick, just ask him, you know. And I'm still thinking, man, I do that, then I have to start going to church. He says, no, I'm not asking you to, I'm not telling you, I'm not suggesting to you to go to church. I'm just telling you one-on-one. Do it one-on-one with him. And one day I did. A couple of weeks or so went by, and I'm sitting in a meeting, and topic is, I don't remember what it was, people were talking about not drinking. And it hit me that I had not drank after a meeting. It was common for me that I would never drink when I would leave my sponsor after spending an afternoon with them. And something was happening that I just went home after I was with him doing the step work or just showing up to read. But when I would leave a meeting, it wasn't uncommon for me to go get a bottle. I already have it in the car. That had stopped when I turned to God, and it took me some time to realize how his response to me was immediate. And I've shared this many times before. I wish I knew the date. I asked them, believe me, I would change my sobriety date to that date. But anyways, but for me, I keep them close every day. And today, I am retired, and but I got things to do too, and my wife does. And it's not like we sit home reading books all day or watching TV, And my day wasn't going smoothly. Only like try to go do this first or go do that set or whatever, and the next thing you know, I go ahead and I said, okay, I need your help. And my day did not change, but my mindset did. I became more peaceful. I became, okay, now you can turn up your radio, go do the stuff you need to do. Things got done. It's my mind that he helped me with. It's a big part of my life. Plus these type meetings, I do 4 to 5. If I find one, there are times there's nothing on TV, but if you go to aa.org, man, and you can find late night big book meetings if you wanna, and I have done that. But this is one I wish I could come back to more often, but I do others. There's one I started with. I started at the men's living sober house, but we do invite the ladies. Because tomorrow is the open discussion one that I started there, and that can go, man, especially with them guys. And but to me, it's their meeting. Let them. So for me, to hear things being revealed, and I hear Jamie share what he has found, I know he's quite the guy that really looks beyond this book for his info, and others that I've gotten to know like him. I need more to be revealed to me, which is why I did not share it earlier this afternoon, in that 311 group, when I heard it seemed like every share, it started with one woman came in and spoke about having God in her life, and God to me is actually, I spoke at an anniversary on Sunday night, and to me it's I've turned to the Son. And I mention his name, and I still get the looks when I do that. And there was a time when I stopped doing that. It's where I started saying the Son of God instead of Jesus. to me, I'm starting to denounce him if I do that. I don't call him a higher power either. I call him by who he is. I know who he is. I don't know the Bible, but I know exactly how it's what. I know exactly what's happening to me, and that's how I understand him. So, when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself. And for me, I can't say that it took time because it didn't. I realized this, man, you ain't been drinking this problem since you asked him to help you. I told my sponsor that. He asked me, did you share that? I said, no. He said, you might have helped somebody else. So I keep him close. If I'm headed out the door, because I gotta go meet up with somebody or whatever, I will put the brakes on and I'll sit down and hang with him for a few minutes. That's how it is for me. And so I'm glad to be here. Sorry I went on too long, but you know, it's who I am today. I'm very grateful for this program. I'm very grateful for God, where it's brought me home, because I didn't cry. I didn't do the porcelain bowl prayers through here. I didn't do none of that. There were times when I was by myself, I just said all the time, I wish I could go home. And I'm home now. So I've been home. I'm staying home. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick. Hey, Rick, I blame it all on Rick Walsh in my case. He opened new doors to me, brother. Opened new doors to me. Absolutely.
There's no hands, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in. I'm Trish, and I'm an alcoholic. And when I first came in here, I wanted nothing to do with God. I had come from fatal illnesses in the family, my own suicide attempts, the point of self-destruction, all while before drinking. And then I picked up the drink, and then I really got into the self-destruction. But I saw each one of those things as God's fault. So I wanted nothing to do with God. And while we were reading Fitzmayo's story, if there is a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me, and I really felt that way. Because I felt God had not been there, God had not done what I was told as a child he was going to do, and as a result, I wanted nothing to do with him. But then comes the squiggly writing on page 56. Who are you to say there is no God? Because I could look back in my life, I could look backwards and see, even through that self-destruction, the hatred, the drinking, there's no way I would have gotten through it without God, without some supreme being who was there watching me, helping me, guiding me, even if I didn't want anything to do with him, to the point of not talking to him and all but saying he didn't exist. I tried to be an atheist. I tried to say I didn't believe. But I realized I did believe there was a God. I just didn't believe he wanted anything to do with me. And then slowly in the rooms, I started recognizing that, yeah, God had been there. God had been there all along, through my suicide attempts, through family deaths, through my drinking, through all of that, even before coming in the rooms, and was definitely there after the rooms, lining up all the dots that, looking backwards, were in a perfectly straight line, but lining it up where the right people would be in my life at the right times, and my ears and eyes were opened for me to be willing to hear the message and try to go to a meeting. Or not to try to go to a meeting, to go to a meeting and listen and actually listen to what was being said. I don't remember what was said there, but I went, and I knew it felt like home. I'm not going to say I found God that first night, but I got an introduction to God. And slowly got a little bit more of an introduction to God, seeing the promises come true. Not just the step 9 promises that are read at so many meetings, but the promises throughout the books and all these one-liners that Jamie referred to. Knowing that God was there, knowing that God had put people in my life to get me through different circumstances. And finally became willing to not just say, yeah, God's there, but to willing to have a relationship, to be open to having a relationship with God. And that was the game changer. And I remember sitting one day having a conversation with somebody and literally feeling a hand on my shoulder. And knowing that nobody was back there. Who else could that have been but God? Standing in the room with me, resting his hand on my shoulder, telling me it's all going to be okay. And I'm going to be okay. And that came as a direct result of taking these steps, working through this book, coming to believe, and seeking. He has come to all who have honestly sought him. So when I started to honestly seek him, not just give it lip service. I had friends years ago who would say, I know when I asked you to pray and you say you're going to, I know that you're going to. It's like, yeah, I gave it lip service. I didn't believe it was going to work. But I said I'd pray for her, and I did. But I didn't believe that it was going to have a result. And then looking back, seeing those prayers had results. Even if I didn't believe, they still did. And then moving into saying prayers, believing what I was praying for, what I was asking for. And searching for that relationship. And as I searched, and as I sought God, God drew near to me as I was starting to draw near to him. And that is a marvelous thing, and that is definitely a result of being in these rooms. And I have written in the book, the problem was not with God or the messenger, but the problem was not with God or the messages, but with the messenger and with me. Because I wasn't willing to listen to the people who were telling me, and I wasn't open to what they were saying anyway. But then eventually my eyes opened up, my ears opened up, and I was willing to hear what people had been telling me all along. I just didn't want to hear it. Until the day finally came where I was willing to hear it, and I started that seeking. And that's all I got, so I guess I get to call in more people.
We got time, folks.
Time. Hi, Kristen.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen. I'm an alcoholic. Boy, every person, when you share, like tonight everyone shared, and so much really made me think, made me look back into my, experience with, these steps. So when we read this tonight, every time I read this part in the book, what I think is, I wish that happened to me. I wish, I just wish that happened to me, that I got that lightning bolt and, I got down on my knees and it just happened. But it didn't. Everyone has their own experience. When I came into the program, I knew nothing, didn't want to know anything about AA. And I'm in the Boston area, and I went away for about a month to New Hampshire. And it was a very quick way through the steps. And I remember someone said, just look out the window, you'll get a higher power. Just look out the window and see the mountains and sun and all that. And I just didn't know what they were talking about. I did not know, and you know what? I didn't want to know. I did not want to know. I kind of shut down, just lip service. as Trish said, just lip service and listened and shook my head. And, the experience being away, what that did for me was keep me sober. Kept me sober for a month. I actually escaped out the gate and was trying to walk down and thinking I could talk my way through getting a bus ticket home, and that didn't work out either. But when I came, I think about this. When I was about 4 months sober, I went to a work party, a dinner, 10 people sitting at I had to bring my husband because I had needed, someone to support me. Everyone from work, everyone was drinking, and I left about 20 minutes into it. I just couldn't be there. And a year later, same venue, same people, everyone's drinking, I'm having my soda and cranberry, and what a beautiful time. I didn't need to bring anyone with me. Beautiful time. About 3 hours later, I'm like, why are you guys leaving? Let's stay. And they're like, Kristen, we've been here. It's time to go home. And I thought about that. Well, what happened in that year? Like, what changed for me? And it was doing the steps. It was joining a group, getting a sponsor who, I say she's so kind but firm. Always my sponsor, but a friend, but always my sponsor first. And that's what I needed. I needed someone to be firm with me and, help me along until I could see God and be open to that. And like you said, I was willing. I wanted to be sober. I think about, I have my book right here, and I guess I haven't opened the front in a while, but I have a picture of my 4 kids that I taped on here when I went up, 5 years ago to the program. So I don't know when it happened for me, but I do know that something sparked inside of me going through the book, that year I had, doing the steps slowly, but I did have a spiritual experience. I can't read this and say, God, I wish that was me. I wish it lightning bolt. But I do. And I envy, people that it's happened to. So I still seek so much, I try to draw close to him through prayer in the morning and sitting out and looking at the sun. I'm always a student. Like tonight, I'm always a student, writing things down and listening to what everyone has to say. So thank you for being here, and I hope I made some sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Glad you're here. You've still got time. Good night, Linda.
You get a twofer.
Twofer. And one of them I was going to call on anyway. But I won't tell who. Hi, Kat.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kat. I'm an alcoholic. So, congratulations, Mary, on your 60 days. That's amazing. Today is day 70 for me.
Good for you. Thank you.
Yes. Hell yes. It's awesome. Spiritual experience, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, right? For me, this time, it's been pretty quick. And it's because I was just so ready and made that decision to turn my will and my life forward. So because that's interesting. And I meant, and that's the difference, I suppose, because I've never felt this in my life, I think. No, I never, not at all. I never have. And I don't want to drink, And I'm gone places, I'm driving by basis. That's where I used to stop and buy alcohol every day. And I don't have to stop anymore. And it's just so freeing. It's so freeing. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? I'm amazed. I'm grateful. Hey, Linda, my cracks are bonded with liquid gold. Woo! I love that. The broken pieces, right? My broken pieces. It's all good. So, thanks everybody. That's all I got.
Thanks, Kat. Glad you're here. Stephanie.
Hello, everybody. Stephanie, recovered grateful alcoholic. And I am so grateful for this program because this program brought me to the place where I could have the relationship that I have now with God. I couldn't have that relationship before in the condition I was in. I couldn't. There's no way. And through the program, it's brought me to a place where I'm free to have that relationship with God. When I start my day, I ask God to somehow work through me or let me do something for Him. Let me be a vessel, or let me somehow, it feels like my day is just wasted. And I still, I rely on God. I have to, because I still can't trust myself. Even if I'm sober, I can't trust myself to, when things come up, you have questions, or, I need to bring it before the one who knows, and the one who has planned all this out. But just very grateful, because I can't even imagine where I would be had I not come in here into this meeting 3.5 years ago. I'm just very grateful. I love all you guys.
Thanks, Steph. Amy, would you like to take us out?
I would, but I'd like to make a couple of comments first, and it's just a consideration. Another one of Rick Walsh's words, a consideration. Even though there is no action required in step 1 and step 2, and there are actions required in all of the other steps. Tonight we've been talking about spiritual experience and spiritual awakening, which Fitz showed us through his story. But here's what I have come to understand. Because each one of our steps, even the 2 reflective steps, 1 and 2, are spiritual in nature. What happens is I take each step, I have a spiritual experience within that step itself. It was a spiritual experience just for me to surrender to my alcoholism and admit that I was an alcoholic and that my life was unmanageable as a result of it. It was spiritual in nature and a spiritual experience to let go of those old ideas and old beliefs and open my heart and mind to new ideas and new beliefs. So what has happened with me, I know it's happened with my sponsor because he feels the same way, so I'm not alone in all of this, is what has happened is I have had 11 separate individual spiritual experiences through the process of taking the first 11 steps. so that by the time I get to step 12, my sleeping spirit is awakened, equaling the spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. It is an absolute guarantee, 100% without fail, 100% of the time, every time, that if I follow the directions as it says in the foreword to the first edition, precisely as the first 100 has given them to us, I will have had a spiritual awakening. It's just a thought to consider. If maybe you're not feeling something, take a closer look at the step you're in, or go back, or if you're struggling with the step, go back to the previous step and take a look at it, because that's maybe where the hang-up is. But how do I know that each one of those first 11 are a spiritual experience? Because something inside of me changed. Something in my heart and my thought process and my actions and behaviors changed. I'm no longer the guy I was when I got here so long ago. And I'm glad something motivated Xavier to raise his hand. So come on in, brother.
Hey, good evening, Xavier, covered alcoholic. So that I at least get to catch the end of this meeting on Tuesdays. My son, it's really meeting early. But I always love this topic. I talk a lot about my wife with this. We do a lot of mindset stuff lately, and it's awesome. It's like really, really cool. It goes really hand in hand with AA, in our opinions. But at the end of the day, like the greatest spiritual experience by far is that I don't drink one day at a time. Like nothing comes close. I have a good buddy, I think he's one of us, his own confession, but he doesn't do AA, man. He just did a 3-day retreat, and I called him this morning. He's been posting a lot of crazy things on Facebook, and I'm like, do you want to go to an AA meeting? Like, you might be I called him, like, I think you're a dry drunk. I think you've been sober for a few years, and I think you're a dry drunk. And you seem a lot like me. You're doing a lot of retreats, and I went through that stage. But man, you're posting some funky things. So he got excited. He's going to go in the meeting. He's going to go to an AA meeting with me next week. I plan on sharing my experience, at least, that all those things are great. All the yoga retreats, for me, like Bob Proctor and like all that stuff is great, but none of it matters. None of it matters a hill of beans if I don't do AA first. If I'm not sponsoring, if I'm not meditating, if I'm not doing inventory, if I'm not calling my sponsor that I haven't talked to in a week, so I need to call them just to check in. If I'm not doing these simple things that the program asks me to do, like praying throughout the day, going to meetings, being of service, I become a dry drunk quickly, and I start to slide back where a drink looks more and more like the solution. In AA, it looks more and more like the problem. So that's my default. So as long as I keep the program first, I have the luxury of doing all the hot yoga I want and going to all the church I want and doing all those other great things, which are amazing, amazing, amazing. But the reality is I'm an alcoholic and I need AA first. And as long as I take these actions, and they are actions on a daily basis, that to me is a spiritual experience, because I don't have to drink one day at a time. And I'm back in flow with my higher power. As long as I'm back in flow with my higher power, life is good. So that's all I got. Sorry I got here so late. I'll pass.
Thank you, brother. Glad you were able to join us tonight. Good to hear from you. And from our big book, page 164. And folks, a lot of people say that the program's over at page 103, and it's not. And how do I know that? Because we find our 12-step prayer in this reading. But given what we read tonight, it's important for me to add this part too. Still, you may say, but I will not have the benefit of contact with you who write this book. We cannot be sure. God will determine that. So you must remember that your reliance is always upon Him. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. Why is that significant? Because tonight we met Fitzmayo in this book. This book gives us a way to meet that first 100 that's no longer here. Moving on. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you, Janie. And we will go out in our usual primary purpose fashion. And for those of you who are new and are not familiar with it, since we're not in the same building, heck, we're not even in the same time zone, but we can't stand up and circle around the table and hold hands. So we hold our hands up in the screen, and that's our way of connecting with each other as we pray out. We'll go ahead, we'll take a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms, especially those who may die tonight, either because they haven't found their way to us or because they came and they weren't ready or didn't want what we had. So a moment of silence followed by the Lord's Prayer. Here's your moment. He leads us from shame to grace if we let Him.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for staying up with us, folks.
Good night, everyone, and thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for helping me
Great
sleep
to
so
see
with
you.
you guys.